Hi, this is Rhonda Shear, and you may remember me from USA Up All Night, and you're listening to the RockStop with Chris Contra.
All right, welcome into the RockStop. Chris Contra here. And tonight's going to be a fun show because joining me on the program is everybody's favorite Twilight Temptress. She was the star of USA's Up All Night. I'm talking about the very lovely Rhonda Shear. How's it going, Rhonda?
Sweet, thank you. I'm telling you, I think I have more fans from Up All Night now than I did before.
It really, a lot of people that watched it at the time, of course, missed the show. And, you got new people finding, clips of your show on YouTube and things like that. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And there's such a throwback to that genre of film on my own show, which is Rhonda Shear Social Hour.com. I've been interviewing a lot of people like Lloyd Kaufman and Jim Wynorski and Richard Gabbai, people, producers and directors from that directed some of the B films that are still out there directing these films. And I think there's a whole new generation that have discovered that genre as well, and they're loving it. And then people miss it because it was just like easy fun.
Yeah. Especially
we need it, I think, more nowadays than we've ever needed it before. And it's just nice, easygoing, funny, crazy horror films. A nice release. So I find it really interesting that people are finding it and coming back to Up All Night, and whether it be Joe Bob Briggs is still out there. He's still doing his thing, and Elvira's doing her thing. So it's kind of interesting that it all comes back around.
Absolutely. I had Joe Bob Briggs on this program a few years back before the resurgence of the genre kind of took place. And after that interview I did with him, I got so many people messaging me and saying how much they do miss TV being like that with, a host in there.
They really do. They miss it. I mean, I think any of those shows could come back, or even I think what we did, I think some of the things would be almost too cool. I think there was a certain, I won't call it a corniness, but it was slower. Like, we became a generation or a world of everything so fast, but everything's so quick that I think everybody's brain is like, well, I just can't listen to someone explaining something for that long. But even when you look back, which I grew up with MTV, and the MTV videos seem so quick, but they're so long by today's standards.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think that's why podcasts are actually doing so well, is because either people are interviewing one or two people within a time period, and I think that people like listening to the stories and hearing it,
right?
Because you're not hearing the whole thing within a minute.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, these podcasts are long form,
mm-hmm.
and even on my own show, I'm doing 3 to 4 guests on a show, and it's nice to have get to speak to someone and get to hear their story. And I think younger people are liking podcasts, or at least they're enjoying them while driving. So
that's so true. I mean, standard radio, you get just a touch of a story or a touch of a person's life.
Absolutely. And if you think back, even I don't listen to as much morning radio anymore, but certainly 90s and the early 2000s. I mean, morning radio was still about you were hearing more of the fun and the games of the DJ. More than music. So
mm-hmm.
it's been, I think there's a yearning for that, that kind of like sense of being part of it.
Right.
So hopefully, I feel like everything comes around in the entertainment world. And, I like the storytelling. I miss some of the storytelling in films. I know we're all into the action and Marvel comics and all that, but good old horror films. Even during my Up All Night years, because we had a lot of TNA films too that were just the high school stuff along with horror. But I don't know. I find all of it really interesting, and I find that the people that I've met at different shows and conventions I've gone to are the sweetest fans on the planet. I think I have more of an appreciation for it as I've gotten older than even while I was doing it. I still get a lot of fan mail. I get a lot of fan mail. I mean, snail mail, fan mail, and they send me pictures and self-addressed stamped envelopes, and I write everybody back because I appreciate it. It's a lot, but I can keep up with it if I keep up with it weekly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is nice. It makes you feel great.
Is
They don't forget. They don't forget you. You don't age in in their mind, which I really like.
yeah. Is the fan mail you're getting now a little different than the fan mail you got back then?
It's really sweet. I mean, I'm not getting. I mean, not that I got any. I mean, every now and then I get like some pervy kind of email.
Yeah.
I mean, mail, but for the most part, it's similar and it's the same kind of. They love the films. They love why aren't you back on air now? I wish it was you and Gilbert back, or I grew up watching you. Most people knew me from their childhood. A few know me from other things or other TV shows, but most of it is from Up All Night and just growing up with me. So it's people in their late 30s, 40s, 50s. So it's either I was watching you with my father or I'm the father and I was watching you with my son.
Yeah.
So it's both sides, but it's really sweet. And the letters they write are really just, for the most part, really sweet.
Yeah, that's great. And for people who maybe didn't watch the original run of the show, it was very freeform, and that's what was I think so that caught on so well. It ran from 10, 11 at night until almost 4 or 5 in the morning.
Yeah, it did. Well, I was on Friday.
Right.
Gilbert Gottfried was Saturday, and I started. I guess it was 10 Eastern time, and the show went till. They played 2 films that I hosted, and then they played a third film that I did the voiceover hosting. But Gilbert did the same thing. So It was a 3-film marathon. And Gilbert started, I think, in '89. I started in '91. There was a woman named Caroline Schlitt who hosted a year and a half before me, and USA Network wanted to change the image. I thought she was great. I watched a few shows, but for whatever, they wanted an over the top. They were going for the whole sexy thing, and I mean I was playing against it, and I finally went, I'm tired of fighting it, I'm just going to go for it. And so I made it just bigger than life and fun and over the top and not stupid if you really listen, but
right.
People flipping by might have thought, oh, big hair, big boobs, whatever, but we watch the stuff today and it sticks. And what's really cool about it is when I started in '91, it was the beginning kind of basic cable, and USA Network was one of the first. I think it might have been the first basic cable system, and people thought they were seeing more, and young guys thought they were seeing more than certainly what you can see on the internet now. But really, what we did was they would cut up the films and take out the language or take out any nude scenes, and then we were filling. That's our. I mean, we could fill anywhere from 10 minutes to 45 minutes plus of interstitial broadcasting. So it just depended on how much they cut out of the films is how much we were aired on a certain night. But fun time. I did 450 shows, so that was a lot. We were never down. It wasn't like a sitcom where you do 22. You shot for 52 weeks a year. So it was a great time. And, I've had a chance to look back at some of these, and some I remember doing really well, and some it's like, I don't remember doing that at all. And I have my team, putting it constantly to YouTube. Yeah. So we're trying to get as much up as possible.
And I got to say, I appreciate that YouTube channel big time, because I watched the show growing up. I think I was the USA Network's target demographic.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It's great to go to your YouTube channel and see a lot of those old episodes I remember, and some I didn't see.
And people are discovering them, and we keep trying to put up my other either sitcom. I now have my own company that is an intimate apparel company. So I design and manufacture women's intimate apparel. You would think it came off of Up All Night, but it didn't. I was always running around in lingerie. But anyway, it's a successful business. And so, my husband and I run it, and it's so nice, to change gears and become an entrepreneur later on. And, I guess I was preparing for it, wearing all those skimpy things on the show. But we put up a lot of the things from my company or on my YouTube channel and just various things. So it's kind of a nice little melting pot of different, a lot of the things that I did, which were thousands of just talk shows and films and sitcoms. And so it's kind of fun to go there and see it. Plus now we are airing live on Saturday night at 9 p.m. on Eastern Time is my Rhonda Shear Social Hour. So we air it live on YouTube. We air it live on Facebook. I think we're going to go for LinkedIn this week as well as actually the website itself. So I've been enjoying that. And like I said, putting on as many people from my past. I had Linnea Quigley on. And
I saw you just had the Glow wrestlers on.
Yes, the Glow wrestlers were on.
Yeah.
So, I wish the streaming services were a little better because sometimes we have technical problems. Yeah. But people love them. They love, bringing back these old, and they're not old, but, oldies but goodies in terms of walking down memory lane. I just had Shelley Michelle on this last week, who's the most famous body double. She did the body double for Julia Roberts. People just really love a little bit of that nostalgia. I'm interviewing, new people and people that are out there today as well. But just like, Gilbert Gottfried's podcast, he interviews these classic comics and people, and his podcast does really well. So
right, yeah.
I just think, again, like we talked in the beginning, that there's something cool about a long form and hearing people's stories. And, you can learn a lot by listening to people that have been there.
Right.
And you go, right, there's so many places for it, right? There's just so much content that's needed.
Now, you've been interviewing people for years. I mean, going back to even before your Up All Night days.
I majored in communications and broadcasting in college, and at that time, I never thought. My hometown was New Orleans, and I wasn't planning on leaving to my house or my parents. I was a homebody, but I wanted a job in radio or television. I just didn't know if I wanted news or to be a DJ. I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew I wanted something. Not so much an actress. That wasn't the first thing. I mean, I went out to Los Angeles when I was 19. I ended up auditioning for Happy Days just on a lark. And so that put the acting bug in my head. But I'd always liked hosting and interviewing more than anything. So
those were your earliest showbiz aspirations more?
Yes.
Yeah, interesting.
It really, truly, truly was. Even in, I had my own radio show and, at the university level. And so, kind of went back to my roots. And then when I moved out to LA and ended up acting. And then, of course, I got Up All Night years later. So I love acting. If someone throws me a part, I'm not going to go out to Hollywood to audition anymore. But if someone throws me something, I will be there. And other than that, it's fun. I started this show during, quarantine just to give me an outlet because, it's just so depressing and not doing anything. And then I just said, this is fun. And people are in, and I wasn't getting, reaching out to people, and I haven't had one person turn me down. I'm not saying that won't happen because it's been a time where people have had more time to give. So in the meantime, it's been a blast. And it's opening a lot of new doors in terms of contacts. And, I'm getting ready to do a cooking show pilot. I don't know, where it'll sell or hopefully if it will sell. But my producer's from LA, and she's, we're doing that safely in October, hopefully as safe as we can during, this time. But it's kind of fun to still have a toe in show business.
Yeah. And you've been, you've worn many hats in show business, let's say.
Yes.
And, you had your comedy career, which, I think stand-up comedy is got to be one of the most competitive worlds in showbiz, and it's got to really prepare you for a lot of other things.
I'm telling you, once you've done stand-up, there's nothing you can't do. I'm really convinced of it. I think you could be in sales. You have no fear. You lose the fear because you're thrown on stage. You're thrown on purpose. You're a masochist. You put yourself in front of an audience of people that you don't know how they're going to accept you, and your payment, of course, is never that big. I mean, maybe you get to a certain level. At the end, I was making a nice payday headlining, or unless you're Jerry Seinfeld and you're getting, gazillion dollars. But I'm saying for the most of the road comics out there, they're making a living. That's it. So you subject yourself to whatever. And so basically you come across everything. So you really get to learn how to handle yourself on stage.
Yeah.
And, I'm on Home Shopping Network, and I bank hours and hours of live television, a month. I've been doing this now for 18 years, and there's nothing that's happened to me on air that could scare me. There's just nothing. mannequins are falling. I've almost fallen on the air, but it's like there's just nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, stand-up does prepare you for everything. I mean, even sales. Like I had never, waited tables, or I'd never did, work behind a cosmetic counter or anything. So when I started selling on air, he goes, well, how are you going to do that? You never sold it. And I just realized for me, it was almost like stand-up. You're just kind of selling yourself. And of course, I believe in my product. I manufacture. So if you believe in it, just like you believe in yourself when you're doing stand-up, then people just know if you're real or not.
Right.
So it's all the same. It's just different forms of it. So, it's nice to have the entrepreneur hat on. I've written a book now, and that's cool. And it's fun to go full circle, even to be broadcasting from my own upstairs studio. Basically, my husband built me a studio. It's kind of phenomenal. I mean, we've got cameras, we've got lights. It's like, I mean, I want to get out of this pandemic, but I really like broadcasting from home.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely comfort to that, for sure.
We want to put more movement into it. I bought basically chairs and things for a set so that I could have some in-house guests from time to time. But apparently that hasn't happened yet. But hopefully down the line, we'll be able to have people in. And I mean, even if it is from my house, we have a big enough house that we could do some pretty fun things. And so we're hoping for that. And in the meantime, we'll just keep plugging along with our little show.
Yeah. I mean, the show is very, very much you, very Rhonda Shear. And,
cool.
I think that's what everybody wants. So
that's sweet.
Now, a little earlier, you mentioned the Happy Days gig, which I had heard that there was some controversy with your appearance at Happy Days.
With my co-star.
Yeah.
Or with the star.
The star.
Yeah. What's funny is I mean, yeah, he basically had me fired, but it's funny because somebody brought it up and then asked me what did I think of Henry Winkler? I said, well, I didn't have the best time with him.
Yeah.
I mean, and then he, he asked me, I was actually a local reporter that was doing something on me for, I think, my business. And he says, yeah, it was actually Tampa Bay Business Journal. So it was a business magazine. And they said, do you mind if we call Henry Winkler's publicist? I said, I would love you to call his publicist. I mean, no one's ever asked me that. I mean, I would love to see what he says. Of course, the publicist, he, through his publicist, denied that it happened. He didn't have the power to do it. He was just an actor. Well, what happened is that they started booking me without even auditioning me. I'd done the show a few times. And so they got to really like me on the air, including Henry Winkler, Fuck the Fonz. Yep. And so I was booked on one show and I got a commercial. And for a young person in their early 20s, getting a commercial at the time, especially, and making residuals off of that is like, you kill for that, because that's your rent, Yeah. So, the part that I had in this particular episode was small, and I was really just playing arm candy to Henry. I mean, I think we were making out in a few scenes, and I might have had one or two lines, but it was like really easy, and I had rehearsed all week. And then they taped on Friday. Well, Thursday was the commercial that was shooting for Kentucky Fried Chicken. So I asked everybody. I asked the producer, Jerry Paris. I mean, the creator of the show, and everybody said, "Oh yeah, we love you. You can take off Thursday, just be here Friday, of course, for the taping." I said, "Of course." Anyway, no one told Henry, and Henry, when they went through rehearsal on Thursday, he flipped out, and there was another girl that was doing stand-in. They have stand-ins there, and he just literally made her Screen Actors Guild, made her part of the union on the spot. And I mean, I heard this over and over, and he may not even remember it. But so I walk in, but no one had called me to tell me. So I didn't get a call on Thursday night or even Friday morning saying, you're not working. I showed up on the set all ready to work, and I go to my dressing room, and my name is off the door, and another female's name is on the door, and somebody, a stagehand, said, "Oh, Rhonda, Henry's looking to talk to you in his dressing room." So I go and I knock on the door, and he just blasted me. You're a young actress. You should never have done that. And I didn't know about it. And something similar happened to me when I was in college, and they pulled me out of the play. And this is to teach you a lesson. I'm thinking, wow. The difference is I'm not in college, and this is real life. And what that ended up doing was blackballing me forevermore from Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley and Mork and Mindy and all those shows that were really happening at that time, because it was the same casting director that did all the shows. So it really did hurt me. And who knows if that, my dream was sitcom, and I never did, I guest starred in them, but I never, starred in my own.
Yeah.
So who knows if that didn't hurt me. I would say it did. I mean, I really felt like it was the right age to be part of that world, and they were liking me and using me all the time without auditioning me. And
yeah. And like you said, those are the same producers of all those shows. I mean, that really,
right.
Yeah, that's.
And Henry, I mean, who knows when they called him, if he forgot. I can't imagine that he would have. I don't believe it.
Unless he did it like many times to many different actresses, but I don't know that.
I don't think so, because, I know Donnie most, and I had Donnie on the show. People say really nice things about Henry, and I'm not saying anything. I mean, he's written me nice letters, before that, because I actually brought him a pilot that I had written. I mean, I was really young to be writing stuff, but, he turned it down. But he wrote me a beautiful letter, and it wasn't until that, I mean, that was crushing to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in his dressing room, and even though he was older than me, I was sobbing like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I would never have done this. If I would have been him, I would have said, okay, I'm going to let the other girl go. I'm going to give you your job back. Hopefully you learn your lesson.
Right.
But
yeah.
he didn't. I mean, and I just think that is beyond cold.
Yeah.
Not only cold, but that it could have truly hurt me with the people that, those were the most powerful people in the sitcom business at that time. So anyway, that's my Henry Winkler story, and it's not so great, and I'm not so fond of him. And I know people say nice things about him all the time, and I'm sure he's a great guy. But if that was his lesson then as a young guy, it wasn't a very good lesson for a young person.
Right. I mean, he
could have slapped me on the hand and given me the lecture,
right,
and said, "Don't ever do something this stupid again."
And that would have been annoying, but.
But annoying, but I would have understood
right,
that. Right,
exactly, yeah.
But to hurt my, potentially my career, that's another thing. So
that's a pretty big
I
thing.
love to help people. I love to help people. I love to connect people. I'm the complete opposite. If I can connect someone to someone that helps them, I will do it in a second.
I think more people in show business, I wish more people were like that, because that's an important thing.
No, it's tough. I mean, I didn't know anyone when I moved there, so everything I got, I really worked for, and it was definitely, I mean, people call it the Me Too era. Well, I've talked to so many friends of mine who feel the same way I did. I mean, it was just as easy to say no to someone as it was to say yes. And if someone wanted to have a meeting at 2:00 in the morning in their hotel room, you kind of knew it wasn't for business.
Yeah. Right.
So, now, I mean, I did have like 2 times where I literally had to run away from people, but that potentially, if they maybe would have gotten a hold of me, could have been a really bad situation. I mean, if they physically would have gotten, but I was able to get away. So, that's scary. But I was also out there 26 years in an era which was completely dominated by men, and which was completely, guys would say things like, if you don't do this, then you'll never work in this industry again. Of course, only one of those people that ever said that to me was completely legitimate. I mean, he was completely legitimate and completely managed major people, but he did threaten me.
Wow.
And I never did it. And, of course, I worked in the business again. I just never, did any of the stuff that he was,
Oh, yeah. There's a whole lot of sleaze going on in Hollywood, and and especially somebody they see you on the screen, you portraying a sex bomb, right, and things like that, and it's right. And they try to take advantage of that. It's unfortunate.
They do. Like they and what's funny, and someone just asked me this question. They asked me. I was interviewing a comic the other night on my show, and she says that people always think after the show that I'm loose and I get hit on a lot after my stand-up. And she goes, I bet you that happened to you a lot. And I go, no, it never did. And which is really weird. But I think why is because I think I was a bit intimidating in my headlining years, because I was on Up All Night. So, maybe not major star, but, a regular on a TV show. And I think I think men can be intimidated by that too. I would get great comments after show and sign a lot of autographs. I had, some managers at the time that didn't understand what to do with someone who's trying to look, sexy or whatever, not dressing down.
Yeah.
Who said, hey, they would ask me out for dinner or whatever. I never had horrible problems in the stand-up world in that. It was only in the acting world that, more of the Me Too kind of stuff happened. Yeah. But I've talked to many people, like I just had an interview with Downtown Julie Brown, and she said same thing as me. She goes, I said no. And I said no. I said, the problem is maybe I would have been a bigger star if I said yes, but
right.
I wasn't, that just wasn't who I am.
Yeah. Right.
It just isn't who I am. So I was like happy to do everything I did was completely on my own terms and, by the contacts that I made. And I'm proud of that. And plus I've had a really successful career, knock on wood, with my husband in a whole nother business. So, I didn't know that I would end up designing and manufacturing and helping women. Women really love what I do for, not only in making them look better as women, but a lot of the comments I get is like, from people that are breast cancer survivors when I do bras, and they're like, oh my God, thank you. You've made me feel like a woman again.
A lot of people may not think of that when they think of, intimate wear or whatever. But
right.
That's true. It's a good point.
Well, because what I'm doing, the intimate apparel I do has more mass appeal than the sexy, as I call it, 1 minute lingerie that you guys think of. And the 1 minute lingerie, of course, is like your Valentine's gift, your sexy little red, crotchless panty. Now, that's not what I do for my business. Is really truly, comfort bras for all ages, shapes, and sizes. So it's not meant to be the dirty bookstore lingerie.
Right.
So women love my stuff. It's really, it's got a sporty look. So I have a lot of, young ladies that really love it. So all ages love it. And it's just, it may not have that low neck. It may not have the appeal that I did during Up All Night, but it definitely appeals to women to, for comfort level. So it's like, we call it, it's a mass business. And, when I'm selling on HSN and Home Shopping Network and some of the other places they sell, we'll sell, hundreds of thousands of units. So it's a different kind of business than, a boutique. I get a lot of comments from women from all walks of life that have been through a lot of different things. Oh, there's my pup. Gotta have all my puppies.
Glad to have them make a special appearance here. But yeah,
special appearance. Wait, let me say their names. Lexi, Sweetie, Tiki, Honey Baby, and Girly Girl.
Nice. And they make appearances on your podcast as well.
Yeah, you can hear them in the webcast. We go to a little dog cam and show them, and they're usually just, I don't know, I guess I put them asleep with my monotonous voice, and they're all sleeping by my feet. So in the middle of shows, like we do my shows from HSN, like it's upstairs, and my upstairs kind of like, I can't describe it. It's kind of got a balcony that goes to the second floor, and I have one of my chihuahuas is like 2 pounds, and I'm always afraid she's so small she can get like underneath this balcony. So I made my husband I made him tape it as much as he could with saran, or like a saran wrap kind of thing. Yeah. So she can't get, she can still get underneath it. So one day I'm on air and I'm selling, my bras, and I see her like heading there, and I'm like, and I scream to my husband. I go, honey, the baby's about ready to go over the balcony. And I mean, all of a sudden I realized how that sounded, like people think it's a baby, not like a dog. Not that that's good either, but I'm on air and I'm going, the baby's going over the balcony. So I'm saying, once you've done stand up, nothing. Yeah. And then I literally I said, oh, I'm sorry if I said the baby, I meant my dog, but that's not good either. I mean, you just, the more honest you are, the better, right? So
yeah, that's live TV right there.
It's live TV. So I don't believe in walking it back. I just believe in going for what it is.
Now, you mentioned earlier in the interview your endeavor into stand-up comedy, and we talk about how that prepares you for so much. But I imagine going into stand-up at first, that had to be kind of nerve-wracking, huh?
Oh, gosh, it's the worst thing. It's horrible. But I had a boyfriend that was doing, okay, well, first of all, when I first moved out to L.A., one of the first things I did is I got into an improv class. I figured it would just help me, loosen me up. And I was actually shy And I'm still shy one-on-one. I can stand in front of millions of people, and I'm not, but I'm shy. Like if I walk into a party, I mean, I'm not the one, I'm going to sit down. I'm not the one that's going to circulate at the party. It's just weird. And a lot of actors are like that. So I took an improv class. I met a guy in that class, and we became like little comedy partners, and we did sketches and kind of worked, here and there, and never really hit like the big stages of LA. But, I fell in love with comedy basically.
Yeah.
And that's when I started getting those Happy Days and such and such. And then I started dating down the line a comic that had been on 21 Tonight shows, and I was with him for a lot of years. And I'd follow him to clubs, and I would help him with his jokes. And I'm like, oh gosh, I started thinking, if he can do this, I can do this. So I told him, I said, I want to do what you're doing. He goes, oh, it's the worst thing ever, because he started in New York, and he just knew that it's a lot of disappointment and a lot of literally waiting on curbs and for your name to be called to see if you get 5 minutes to stand up and perform that night.
And that's only half the battle, because then you got the live audience. Yeah.
Right. So, I said, I'm doing it. So, you have youth, and you have you just think you can do it. So one night I finally got up at a showcase that was not even at a comedy club, but it was like a guy that used to showcase the singers and actors and whatever you did. And he was really sweet. And I followed a guy with puppets doing the Jackson 5. And that was my first. I think someone sneezed in the back of the room, and I thought it was a laugh, and that was it. I was hooked.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, you start sitting in front of clubs and putting your name down on open mic nights, and maybe you'll get to the stage, maybe you won't, you don't know. And then I started going around town and talking to delicatessens, and there was this one deli in Westwood, that had an upstairs room, and I said, can I, book this room on Monday nights for female comics, and then, maybe you'll make some extra money, And so they said yes. So they didn't charge me for it. And they just let me, I booked females. And even if we had a few people in the audience, it gave these women a chance and myself to get up and perform. And I did that for a while. And then I started doing the same thing at the Laugh Factory. I asked Jamie Masada, when it was this tiny little club, I said, can I, same thing. I think it was, I don't know, it was a Monday or Tuesday night, same thing. And sometimes we'd have 13 people in the audience, sometimes 20. It was never packed, but it still gave us an audience and a venue. And he let us do it for the longest time.
That's awesome.
That really helped. And then I started, having more confidence to go and try out at the Comedy Store and the Laugh Factory and, the Improv, and ended up making all three of those. The Improv was my first home club, but the other two came later. Then I started going on the road to the Dumpy Dives, because I really felt like you need to do that and stand up.
Yeah.
And then I started headlining in Vegas and other places. So I really paid my dues. I mean, I did it from 84 to, I guess, I've played around with it in the last, 10 years, but not a lot. I've done it. I have hosted shows. I even hosted the Rhonda Shear Pajama Party, which was me and four of the comics on a big theater here. And it comes back to you. The only thing is you have to stay writing current, keep it current. Oops, there they go. Sweetie, you have to be quiet. Let them go.
But you definitely put in you paid your dues, like you said, in stand-up comedy. That's not an easy thing to do at all. And then I know you met up with Joan Rivers, who was an inspiration to you.
I did.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because my friend, who's now the president of MGM Studios in reality and unscripted, his name is Barry Posnick. He was one of the young producers on Joan Rivers' talk show. And he used to watch Up All Night, and he was really young, early 20s, and just out of college. And he loved my character. He didn't know me, but he called and he said, I think you'd be really good on the Joan Rivers show. And he booked me a few times, and we became friends. I became friendly with Joan, not friendly, hey, let's go have a beer, but, she was really sweet and put me on her radio show. She knew me and would use me on her talk show every now and then. And then Barry became my friend, and he bounced from show to show. So every show he was doing, which is all the crazy talk shows of the 90s, he would put me on all those different shows. which was like kind of the beginning of reality TV. It was just like crazy stuff. I mean, all the Maury Povich, just a ton of shows. I mean, I did dozens of them, and I kind of played, a little bit of a sexy character. It wasn't really, it's kind of up all night, but not really. It was a combination. So whatever they wanted, I went for it.
Yeah.
So, but that really helped me too. And also in the hosting world, I ended up hosting and filling in for, Vicki Lawrence, who had her own talk show, and I had been a guest on the show a couple of times, and then she was negotiating her contract. And so she, when people do that, they're like, I'm not working. So they called me and I filled in, and I was like, wow, what a cool honor. And so I actually was talking to CBS for a minute or two about my own talk show. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so I guess I've always had that love of the talk show and the interviewing. It's always been in my heart. So I like it. I like it.
I got to say, just to talk about your interviewing style and things. I mean, looking back at your time on Up All Night, and I was a big wrestling fan back in the day too, and I know that you did those ones with the WWF, which were really some of the coolest interviews that I've seen with some of those wrestling guys, because you really made them, you took them in a different way that I hadn't heard them before.
I know. Well, right. I somehow get things out of people that they normally wouldn't say. It's the weirdest stuff.
Yeah, right.
I think it's just because I'm really just having a conversation. It's more conversational than it is, and more curious than it is, having, laid out questions. I kind of just go for it. I mean, I'll look at someone's resume and I'll say, oh, I'll just go from here.
Yeah.
Because I kind of just want to be surprised myself,
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, I guess, or that I'm lazy. Maybe it's a little bit of both, but it's
a natural. It's very natural, and it's
yeah, I just like the natural and whatever comes out. I mean, I've had people admit crazy stuff to me, but yeah, the WWE, or was it WWF back then, was great, and USA Network was tied in with them, and so they would cross promote me and use me, and then WWF used me on their WrestleMania 10, which was people, still have fans from that too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll get fan letters on that. I did one line in Spaceballs. I get fan mail on that, and I get fan mail from WrestleMania, which is the only other things that really, I don't get fan mail necessarily from, any of the other shows, but those two things I will get separate from everything. So There's such a cult following of Spaceballs and of wrestling.
Yeah. No Kimmy Gibbler fan mail?
No, not individually. Some people will bring it up every now and then. And what's so funny is that Jeff Franklin, who created that show, he's a semi-friend. I'm saying him. He's not like I call him every day and go, hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Right.
But he brought back the other show, and I'm like, man, he could have cast me in a little role.
Yeah, sure.
But and that went for a while, and then they took him off. He was the show creator, and they actually, but I think they had a good 3-4 year run on whatever, The Return or Fuller House, I guess it was called. I never watched it to really get a good look at it, but I think more people love the original than the redos.
That's often the case.
Absolutely, but wrestling's cool, and just having the Glow Girls on, I didn't realize when you do these webcasts, people can watch them all week long, and then all of a sudden, you're hitting so many thousands of viewers because they can watch it in, in so many different channels. So that's really cool. So of course it's building up my social media, which is really good for my business and for everything else. So. Oh
yeah, definitely.
It's fun. I mean, I'm not I'm saying you. I don't know how old you are, but you sound really young. I'm not I get along. I can get by with it.
Oh yeah, I mean, you've been doing it for years, and in all types of, as the medias have changed and things, you've always been there, Rhonda Shear, doing entertaining things. Yeah, I'm
trying. I still like the good old fashioned, like what we're doing, the good old fashioned interviews or podcasts. I love radio. I used to love doing morning radio. Mm-hmm. It's just fun, It's.
Did you ever do the Man Cow show out here in Chicago?
Why did I know you were going to say that? Yes, I did several times to promote comedy shows.
Yeah.
When I was in the area, I can't remember what clubs. I worked several clubs there, but I did him a few. Is he still on the air?
He is.
Wow. That's amazing. Boy, talk about a long run.
Yeah, I mean, he's gone off for a little while, but then he always seems to come back. So I believe he's got a show right now.
Wow, that's really cool. I mean, I did Howard Stern a few times. I did Bubba the Love Sponge here, who was in the Tampa area. I think he's gone now.
Speaking of your Howard Stern appearance, that was a very memorable one that, you were such a great sport. I mean, Stern can be brutal. And Stern was certainly pretty brutal to you.
He was, and I just went along with it because we did crash his studio.
Yeah.
And he is kind of brutal. I don't think he's the sweetest guy in the world. I had this interview, I thought he was okay and was different off camera, but I think when you make that much money and you've been doing it for so long, you kind of feel like you're above everybody. But I did have Jackie the Joke Man on recently, and I never had interviewed him, and I didn't know him other than when I was in the studio for a few minutes with on air.
Yeah.
But and I read his book because he sent me his book, and I knew that he held out for money. But I think at the end, Howard really gave him a raw deal because he really did kind of really make the Howard Stern show. I mean, he was giving him the jokes in those early years. I mean, he was literally in real time writing the jokes.
Yeah, you could see the show go downhill kind of after Jackie left.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I felt kind of bad. I mean, I kind of I understand he was holding out for big money, but he wasn't getting paid that much for all the years he was on there. So, for what he did, and literally to be that fast and to come up with, now he wasn't coming up with jokes. He was coming up with really great material in real time. But he's a nice guy. He's a really nice guy. And I would love to have him back on my show, too. I mean, he could definitely tell a lot of jokes. But when you just talk to him, and it's just regular Jack, he's very cool.
Yeah, that's another cool thing about your podcast. You get to learn about the real people and things.
Right, as you do.
Yeah, I try to do it.
Good. I realize as I'm spitting out these names to you, we've had quite a few people on in not that many months. It starts adding up. I'm like, wow,
it's pretty cool. Yeah,
it is pretty cool. Yeah. It is pretty cool. We try to book 3 to 4, but actually 3 is our best because we try to keep it. But I talk too much, but we try to keep just like 20-minute intervals. It's running about an hour and a half right now, which I think is fine because there's no time limit, and then when we make it into a podcast, we cut out some of our mistakes and things.
Right.
It usually works out.
Do you usually cast when you get 3 guests on or whatever? Do they usually know each other, or do you like to introduce them to new people?
We only did that with the Glow Girls. That's the only time, or maybe one other time. We don't have them we don't like them interacting. Sometimes people speak over people, and it just becomes really hard with these streaming services.
Yeah,
we did it with the Glow Girls. We had 3 at one time, and then I tried to take someone off, but so that they wouldn't keep talking over each other. So it's more one-on-one interviews. I find it's better for me, maybe because I don't have the attention span to work on all 3 of them. But I find that, if one's kind of sitting there and just kind of it's different than like if you had a camera and you could go off of them. But when you're in these chat rooms like that, you can't really take the camera off. So we use what's the name? We use BeLive and StreamYard are the 2 services that we use, and they're good, but I think they'll get better down the line. We still have a lot of dropping out, and I think sometimes it is from the guest end, or maybe their internet service may not be great that night, and it's horrible to say that because I think people think it's our end, but it's really not. And I mean, even when you're watching newscast right now, you see people dropping out, and they're probably on satellite. So
it's true.
It's part of what's going on right now. But we do the best we can. We try to do as much live, but like I had Downtown Julie Brown. It didn't get to air. We're going to air it this week, I think. But she was coming from Italy, so I've interviewed someone from Spain and from Italy and different places. So we've had to put them on different. We've done some pre-tapes, and sometimes I love doing the pre-tape and then just having a couple of live on. Then it takes a little pressure off of me. But we had her pre-taped and it didn't work. It was something. It didn't stream through. Something was going. So we're saving it for this week. It's all good.
That's cool. All right. So Downtown Julie Brown this week.
Yeah, this week along with Jan Karam and my producer friend that I was telling, Billy Reback. And they're both strong comics, and so I'll have those 2. And I was going to have another comic on, but if I'm putting Julie back in, then her interview runs about a half an hour, so should be plenty enough with all the craziness we do. But, it's fun. It's fun, just like you're enjoying what you're doing. It's really cool to speak to people and
definitely
and hear their backstory. And
I just wanted to follow up on the Howard Stern thing real quick. You did. He had you, kind of tied down there for a minute.
Yes.
You did bite his hair though. So
I did legitimately bite his hair. I can't believe that no one's really asked me that before, but I really was numb. I was standing outside with Sissy Biggers, who we were doing this other show on Live from Queens. It was called Live from Queens. It was on the Lifetime Network, rather. We did this show, and so her cameras were following us, and then he had his cameras, the E Entertainment, I guess, it was E, or Extra, whatever his broadcast on.
Uh-huh.
And so it was kind of fun. So we were up, now it's all under the Emmy Awards, but back then they had Cable Ace Awards for just cable television.
Right.
So he was up for Best Host, and the girl Sissy Biggers, I used to co-host with her on the show. She was up for Best Host against him. So we thought it would be really funny to go over to his studios and crash the studios and literally say, "Hey," and I would be the liaison because I knew him from being on there a couple of times.
Yeah.
"Howard, it's Rhonda. I want you to meet Sissy Biggers. She's up against you." So literally they made a stand. It was snowing. It was one of those freezing days. And what's his name? Baba Louie or Baba Booey or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, running it. And he's like, "Okay, Howard's going to have you up." Well, that was actually 20 minutes after standing on the phone outside up to his studio. And, finally, they let us in, and I was frozen. I was virtually numb, frozen. So when he was tickling me, normally I would have been ticklish, but I couldn't feel a thing. I was numb. I was numb from standing out in the freaking cold, and he was so mad. And I was really trying to act like when I did the Live from Queens show, I just did it as myself. But when I went to his studio, knowing that he liked more the Up All Night character, I went kind of into the more of the Ben Bowie sound. And so he goes, "I'm only letting you in because you're pretty," or whatever. But then he really gave Sissy grief.
Yeah.
What's funny is on the show, Sissy was more of the naughty one, and I was more of the straight one, even though I had the sexier look.
Oh wow!
So who little backstory on that show was called Live from Queens. We have not put any of them up on YouTube, and I really want to, but because she had great guests on. I was her every other week co-host for about 2 years. And do you know who the every other week when I wasn't on co-host was?
I do not.
Joy Behar.
Ugh.
And Joy was so mean to me, so mad that why are they using Rhonda Shear and me? We are nothing alike. We are nothing alike.
Yeah.
And I remember we did a Christmas photo, and it was the whole crew and cast, and she was giving me, it came out, and she was giving me the dirtiest look in this photograph. They ended up canceling the show before hiring either one of us. The girl, Sissy Biggers, who I haven't been in touch with, but we were Facebook friends for a while, she was a network executive, for The Tonight Show, and she was kind of a Martha Stewart type, so she was like this goody two-shoes, and she could cook, and she could tell you how to do house things. And yet I heard she was the son of a, as an executive, she was a really tough executive, but we got along great on the air.
Yeah.
And I had fun because it was really yin and yang, and they kind of liked it. They liked her Martha Stewart thing and me coming on in the sexy little dresses. And, but she had all kinds of cool guests on the show too. And that show where the way that Howard edited it compared to the way Lifetime edited it was completely different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
But I'll have to ask, I have, people on staff that do my videos and stuff since we're live on HSN. So I'll have to ask him to look for those Live from Queens shows and see if he can't find the one with Sissy Biggers. That would be really cool.
Did she win the that Cable Ace Award?
She did not. And did Howard? Yeah, I don't think he won that year either.
Oh.
I feel like Bill Maher won for Politically Incorrect. It was a really interesting group of people. It was Bill Maher and Howard Stern and Sissy Biggers, and there was somebody else, but it was just this weird group of people that didn't really go together. But
yeah, right.
I think Bill Maher won.
Interesting. And and did you ever get Howard's hair out of your teeth?
No, it took a while. If you want to know the truth, I left the studio with long Howard hair in my teeth. So that was not a lie, and he was really pissed that I bit his hair from the root.
I don't think anybody else has ever done that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I shocked him because nobody would usually attack. The thing is, Howard doesn't know what to do if you attack him.
Yeah,
He really doesn't.
that was what was so great about that appearance. I'd never seen Howard act like that.
Yeah, no, he was pissed, but I think he was shocked because, I think what he wanted to do was like, probably slap me. But he's a nice Jewish boy. He wasn't going to do that. But he was, and his hair was his pride and joy. Remember?
Yes, absolutely.
Probably got a pretty big wad of it out there.
And
needless to say, I was never booked back.
Yeah, that's true.
It's fine. I've lived fine without it.
I did want to mention that, saying what a good sport you are. You also did Wally George's show.
Oh, gosh, you really do your homework. Yeah, Wally George was in love with me. I think he proposed to me, for real.
Oh, wow.
Like, for real. And I did go out to dinner with him a couple of times. And, I didn't have any, not that I don't talk politics at all, but, I was not into politics at all back then. You couldn't, right, left, middle.
Yeah.
I didn't know the difference back then. I just wasn't there,
Mm-hmm.
And now when I look at him, I go, oh my gosh, well, now I understand what he stood for and what that whole thing was about. But he had me come on and do these crazy characters, and I would wear wigs. I came on as a hooker, I would just, and I would say to him, Wally, people are going to know I'm just acting. He goes, it's okay.
Yeah.
So I think I was thrown off at least 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, that was his signature.
But I never really went on as, I don't think I ever, maybe once I went on as me, but I think, it was always like made up names because I was wearing wigs. And
that's funny.
Maybe one time I went on as me, but I know one time I went on as an out call, basically a hooker, I guess. That was like kind of funny.
Yeah. That was funny stuff.
It was funny stuff. And he was ahead of his time. All those guys that were doing that then were really ahead of their time.
That's true. And even like...
I did Geraldo's show. Geraldo had his own talk show, and it was the same kind of stuff. And, oh, gosh, like Oprah, that's when she started, was around that same time, So I did. The only one I didn't do was Oprah's show. I was actually booked for it at the last minute. She called, and not she, but for some reason they changed. They decided not to do whatever we were doing. So I was booked on, and Jenny Jones' show. I was the only other one I didn't do because she, we were little. She was like, in her mind, was competitive with me as a stand-up because she was doing the blonde, kind of bombshell thing.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think I did every other one that was around. I did them, and they were great. And that was another thing that gave me great freedom, because basically this was the beginning, as I said, of reality, because the producers of your segment would tell you, well, do this, do that. They didn't script it, but they would say, really go for it, really, really go for it. Because I was always on with Charo or these other, crazy over-the-top women.
Yeah.
Judy Tenuta, was on a bunch of them with her, and I love Judy and I are friends. But, they would be like, just go for, whatever the topic was, just go bigger. And then they would kind of coach you in between. So as a comic, it was like great experience for me, because to me, it was like basically playing a character.
Yeah, right. And did you ever think of stepping kind of outside of your, stereotype, the character that you kind of created, and want to maybe do some dramatic stuff?
I did. After Up All Night, I wanted to, and I was so, people just had me so typecast that I was getting nothing. So the truth of the matter is, and then my husband came along shortly after that period of time. If I would have stayed in LA, we moved away for business and survival, basically financial survival.
Yeah.
I really truly think if I would have stayed in there, that some really big things would have happened. I think that people would have finally gotten over the Up All Night. They would have started giving me chances on readings, and then I would have started to get things. And I think I would have overcome that. Now, whether or not I would have been, just a bit player and continue to survive or get something big, like that, I can't answer. But I just, from my friends who have stuck it out in LA, they still work. I'm not, not all of them are huge names, but they still work. As much as I complain about the road I took, at least I complain to my actor friends, oh, I love acting and stand up. In terms of my lifestyle, it's been really good. Yeah. So, and I love my business, and I've been able to keep my toe in it. I said, I've never been completely out of it, and I've lived a really great life in Florida, and I can't complain. It's given me, a lot of diversity and just love of helping people. I've been involved with tons of charities, American Cancer Society, American Heart Association. I mean, on and on, different events that not only have I been chair of, but I've opened my own doors of my home and raised money for all theaters. So, I mean, it gave me a chance to do something much more normal, and also living a more normal domestic life, as much as I have stepchildren and step grandchildren. I don't have any biological children, but except my 5 chihuahuas that I did that I did give birth to. And it wasn't easy with those 4 paws. But I have to say that that's maybe the one regret, that I didn't have children in my life, but that was my choice, that I kept sticking to, the showbiz. And by the time I got married, it was just a little past my time to we tried, it just didn't work, and I didn't want to go the whole, route of all I could have, but I wanted to have my own egg involved, and that wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So, but anyway, but no regrets. I mean, I have, like I said, 6 grandchildren, and they live in Louisiana, and 2 stepchildren, and so I have a full family, and I still have. I'm the baby of my family. I have much older siblings, but they're all still alive and kicking, thank God. And I was very young, so all my husband's parents and my parents are deceased, but we have family and aunt, and nieces, nephews, and all that stuff. So I feel very blessed.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Florida's fabulous. I love living here. I mean, I have to say, I never thought I would say that. When I gave up my 310 area code, I thought I was going to die. I was such a Beverly Hills girl and loved it. And when I first moved here, I thought, oh, this is podunk, but I have, I love it. I love the water. I love, much about it. And California's really not what it used to be when I was there. Right. And, I can't see me. I mean, I have friends that still do the club circuit and get up there and, wait for their time. I mean, not, they're working the clubs. And I mean, it's like, I'm at an age now that I'm spoiled. Yeah. I'm not saying that if I got up on stage, I wouldn't love it, but the whole thing of
the whole lifestyle
of it, or going out on the road, or, I mean, if that's what I would have had to do for a living, it would not be, where it is now. So I'm quite happy. I'm actually, overlooking the water right now in my backyard. It's nice. We're in the bay of Tampa Bay. So
yeah, it's really nice.
It's really nice. So no complaint.
And I did want to ask you about the late actress Dorothy Stratten, who I know that you worked with in the film Galaxina. And unfortunately, Dorothy had that terrible tragedy not long after that film, where she was murdered by her estranged husband.
Right. Well, here's the thing: is that Dorothy and I had who was Playmate of the Year, and also was married to a crazy person. Yeah. And who was she dating? I mean, she was going with some
Peter Bogdanovich.
Peter Bogdanovich. And truly, she was slated, without a doubt, to be, I mean, everyone said this, and she was a few years younger than me, but for the most part, we had the same agent, the same people, so it was the same era that I was out, when I started. Yeah. She was going to be the next Marilyn Monroe. I mean, she was as beautiful. I mean, to me, Marilyn Monroe just has something so special that very few people had that look, feel, whatever.
Right.
And she had it. And it was, so, she was at one of the same modeling agencies that I was with. And when we found out what happened to her, and that, he shot her, literally point blank in the head, and what he did along with that, it was horrible. It shocked the industry. Hefner cried. I mean, it was so tragic, because her career was cut short, her life, obviously. She's gorgeous, and she was sweet. I went out to dinner with her a couple of times with my agent, and she was just this really sweet, down-to-earth girl. And then my part in Galaxina, I was a robot, so I didn't have any words, but I did mime, and that's what got me into that. It was like probably the first thing I ever did out in LA.
One of your many skills.
Or one of the first things.
Yeah.
One of the first things anyway, but she was completely amazing, and that was very tragic.
Yeah, it's great to hear about her as a person, though, that you actually went out with her, and she was so down to earth, because a lot of times people like that become kind of, the legend of them becomes more than who they really were. So it's cool to hear about her.
No, she was sweet and just had this luminous beauty that would have been, I think she would have been a major star.
Yeah.
Maybe more serious than a Marilyn, but she was special. There's very few even actresses of today that have her look or just everything. She just had it all going.
Yeah.
And Hefner at the time, Hef, as everyone called him, he said, "I finally have my star," because there'd been no playmates at that point. I mean, now there's a few that that have gone off and done things, but at that time there was no one had really crossed over from being a playmate to a movie star, and she was going to be that first one, and he was so proud of her.
Yeah.
And she was beloved by all the girls. I mean, when you cross over and you're loved by women too, then you're a good person. That they weren't jealous of her.
Right.
Her friends, we all loved her.
And then the final thing I wanted to ask you about is the USA Up All Night, those segments that you did in between the movies and things. How much of that did you come up with?
Well, some shows were completely scripted, and some shows we did on the fly. So, a lot of the shows we did in studio were scripted, but, loosely scripted. I mean, I'd have to hit certain points or hit certain things about the movie or introduce certain things. But then, if I ad-libbed, that was fine,
Yeah.
But, we also were under a time, like if we only had 10 minutes to fill or 45 minutes or 20 minutes to fill, we had to hit that time.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of times we were on location because it was totally up all night. So we would do things, and usually we were in nighttime locations when that was all on the fly. Other than that, everything. But yes, if they like, I would come up with ideas for the show and bits for the show, and hey, why don't we have this person on or that? And it was the early days of basic cable. We were able to really make fun of the network and stuff that no one would ever do today. But
totally.
So it was like early cable, and it was an honor to be part of that, to tell you the truth. It really was.
Yeah, it was great. And all your great nicknames. I introduced you here on this show as Twilight Temptress. You had so many great ones on the show.
I did. We would come up. My sister came up with those. Hillary Schachter, one of my producers. I literally have them written down somewhere. Like I have there's over 100 of them.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So your midnight morsel.
Yeah.
Your bedtime buddy, of course.
Of course, yeah.
A lot of nostalgia there.
Definitely.
It's fun to watch the old shows. It really is.
Yeah, and I definitely suggest you guys, if you did not grow up watching Up All Night or know about a lot of these things, you check out Rhonda's YouTube channel, because you can see a lot of her appearances over there and her great Up All Night clips. So I will definitely leave a link.
And subscribe to the channel.
Definitely.
And for all my foot fetish fans, because I know they're out there, and you may not be one, Chris, but I have a lot of fans that are foot fetish fans. We've been doing the Foot of the Week on Rhonda Shear Social Hour. So we're bringing that glory back just for them. And I will not divulge who the feet are.
Oh, really?
As like my other guests, you will know who they are, but the feet, some may be mine, some may not be. All I can say is there will be a foot on every show. Some naked feet, some with stockings.
So sexy mystery feet.
sexy mystery feet. Yes. So, yeah, I do still get fan mail about my feet. So, if you don't know about that, you'll have to look into that. But, Up All Night definitely gathered a different array of fans of all types, but always nice. I love all my fans.
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, we'll check out your podcast, the Rhonda Shear Social Hour. I will leave links to all this stuff so you guys can check them out. And this has really been great talking with you, Rhonda. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Chris, thank you. You're awesome.
Thank you. So take care, okay?
All right. You take care, and we'll talk again.